right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Gage, and I'm the CEO and President of the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of our entire team, welcome to our Chamber of Commerce's BizDev series of educational workshops. Our educational series aims to inform and empower business owners and our broader community about today's relevant topics that impact us now and in the future. And I'm very honored today to introduce today's workshop, and I'm excited to share that this episode will be the second of three sessions we are taping with the Santa Clara County Open Space Authority. For over 3 decades, the authority has championed agriculture in the Santa Clara Valley. As interest grows in preserving worklands and strengthening our local food supply, they are developing a comprehensive strategy to define their role in supporting agriculture for future generations. Now, to help educate us on their strategic plan, we are pleased to welcome agricultural specialist Anna Regalado. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Nick, and thank you so much.
We're so excited to have you here. And for the audience, Anna's going to share with her insights and information on the authority's long-term vision, the key partners and collaborators, as well as sustainable models for farming and ranching. So with this as a quick backdrop, Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning again, everyone, and thank you, Nick, for the warm introduction, and also a big thank you to the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to present today on this very exciting project that we've got going on. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and just get started. So a bit of a quick outline for us today. We'll be going through very briefly the importance of agricultural lands. Although it is brief, it is important to bring up these topics and really understand why we're doing this work and why we're choosing to protect agricultural lands and also choosing to conduct this farm program visioning process. After that, we'll go into a brief history of the authority's agricultural work thus far in those 30 years, as Nick has mentioned. And then we'll really dive into the farm program vision, a bit of the process, a bit of the project itself, as well as some high-level goals and some of the initial ideas that have come about as a result of some meetings with stakeholders thus far. And to keep going with that, Nick did a really great job of mentioning and bringing up our mission. But as a public agency, we are really focused on conserving the natural environment, supporting agriculture, and connecting people to nature. And we'll do that by protecting open spaces, natural areas, and working farms and ranches for future generations. And so we have a very broad mission. But the piece that we'll be focusing on today is really that supporting agricultural work. And as my title suggests, as the agricultural specialist, my work really focuses on really leading up and starting to promote and expand those agricultural projects and programs that we've been doing. And so a little bit about projects is that those are things that have a shorter time frame and have more specific deliverable, like this farm program vision, right? We're conducting this process now, and we're hoping to wrap it up by the summer. While a program that we might engage on, which is something that we'll be exploring in this process, is something that will be ongoing. It will be an ongoing effort or service that we hope to have for all folks within our jurisdiction, particularly ranchers and farmers. And some of these projects that we've worked on thus far include supporting our Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan team with agricultural planning, but also we've conducted some board tours and things like that to make sure that our board of directors, as well as our citizens advisory committee, is really aware and gaining knowledge of the different aspects of agricultural work. And hopefully that's something that this farm program vision will continue to expand and we'll be able to bring to other folks in the region. Beyond that, my work also centers around building working partnerships with farmers and ranchers. And this is really important, not only because we want our agricultural work to be informed by those who are growing and raising food directly on the ground, but also because we see them as very important partners in stewarding and caring for these working lands. It's a huge undertaking. And the more folks that we have doing this work, the better our working lands will be, the better our open spaces, and the better our environment will be for the public and for everyone involved. Along that vein of protecting and maintaining farmland, the Open Space Authority has done a lot of this, and they've done it through agricultural conservation easements, which is that protection piece. And if you haven't heard of an agricultural conservation easement or an ACE before, it is basically where we will go ahead and use funding to purchase an easement on a property so that we hopefully prevent the development of that land moving forward, and we're able to ensure that it stays in agriculture. And once we have those easements, whether they're on other private properties or once we're able to purchase agricultural lands ourselves, it's important to maintain them. It's important to make sure that they stay healthy, that they are able to continue being viable for agriculture. And we do that with the help of our incredible field team here at the Open Space Authority, as well as other partners and contractors, whether that means improving soil health, whether that means improving wells or other infrastructure. It's really critical to make sure that these lands are still usable and viable for agriculture. And also, we're very excited to be able to model some of those climate smart agricultural practices on these lands and hopefully use them as an example for other folks in the region to be able to see what's possible when you sort of lean into these climate smart practices, whether that is cover cropping to improve soil health, whether that is conservation grazing on our hillsides to be able to both maintain native landscapes while also raising cattle, or whether that is reducing tillage or other methods of agricultural production. So that's just a little bit about my work and what I do here at the Authority. And now I'd really like to get into and talk about those benefits of agriculture. You know, as Morgan Hill residents, as you know, folks that have grown up in and around the area, I'm sure you're aware of how critically vital agriculture is in our communities. And just a couple of stats. You know, the value of agricultural products as reported in 2024 in the Santa Clara County Crop Report exceeded, it was just over $389 million. And so it is a huge part of our economy still, even though, you know, we were formerly known as the Valley of Heart's Delight and now we're Silicon Valley. It is still hugely critical and it is still hugely beneficial to our economy and to supporting the environment and the you know, jobs of people here as well. And the number of farms, you know, back in 2022, when the USDA did their agricultural census by county, was reported as 825 just within Santa Clara County alone. And I believe that that number has increased over the years. And what that means is we have over 825 small individual businesses that are providing jobs, that are conducting work, that are feeding our communities and our families here in Santa Clara County. And we recognize that probably, we hope that number will grow because as our population grows, we understand that the need for agriculture and local food is going to increase and continue to grow as well. And part of the reason why it's important to support agriculture, not just from an economic standpoint, but also from an environmental standpoint, is that it is really good to have open spaces where you're producing food because 1 acre of farmland produces 77 times fewer greenhouse gases than 1 acre of development does here in the county. And that's a figure that comes out of our 2018 Santa Clara Valley Ag Plan, where you can read more about the huge benefits of agriculture and the ways in which they're preventing these greenhouse gas emissions. And that's through keeping open spaces. And by doing that, we're also able to provide important ecosystem services. And some of those ecosystem services include things like carbon capture, right? As plants are growing, they're breathing in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and turning it into fixed carbon that ends up back in the soil. They're also providing clean air. The soil that they grow in provides improved water filtration. And those are all really critical ecosystem services that we wouldn't have without agricultural lands, right? If it was paved over and developed, we would lose that. And, you know, we'd also lose that important healthy habitat for beneficial birds and pollinators, in addition to losing, you know, food production by losing that space. And so that's why it's so critically important to continue to invest in agriculture, as well as the fact that it, you know, strengthens local and regional food systems. The food that is grown here can feed our communities and it can feed other communities. We know that California is a powerhouse agricultural producer. And as, you know, a county that continues to invest in agriculture, we help contribute to that. And it's really great when you can go to your local farmer's market or your local grocery store and you know that the food that you're getting was raised in your county and that it's local and you're supporting a family. And so that's just a few of the incredible benefits of agriculture and one of the reasons why we continue and choose to do this work. And a brief history of that work, right? Nick has been, as Nick mentioned, there's over 30 years of the Open Space Authority doing this. And Some of them were recent accomplishments that we've done. In 2014 through 2016, because these processes tend to be a little long as you're trying to, unfold these protections, we were able to protect over 300 acres of farmlands in the Pajaro River area, which we now call our Pajaro River Agricultural Preserve. And these 300 acres of farmland are currently being farmed and maintained and managed by a local organic farmer. And it's really great to be able to see that even in the southern part of our county, we're able to do massive land protections like this. And in 2018, a really big effort that the Santa Clara Valley Open Space underwent was working with the Santa Clara County to release the Santa Clara Valley Agricultural Plan, which I mentioned briefly before. And this was a really comprehensive plan to understand both the economic and environmental benefits of really protecting agriculture and to look at it from a policy perspective and a planning perspective at what are the ways that the county and agencies like the authority can organize themselves to be able to invest and protect in those agricultural lands. And if you haven't gotten a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. You can look it up, Santa Clara Valley Agricultural Plan 2018, and it should pop up for you. And we'll also be sharing out the link later. And to continue on that work, just recently as 2021, we were able to protect 60 acres of prime farmland in Coyote Valley. I mentioned a bit earlier that we're working currently on a conservation area master plan for Coyote Valley. And those 60 acres are right in the heart of that area. And it's really important to us to make sure that we don't lose these resources and that we can continue to maintain them. And we're very excited. And if you haven't heard more about our Coyote Valley Conservation Area Master Plan, I encourage you to take a look at it and look it up because there's some really cool things that'll be coming out in the spring that we'll discuss more about that as a separate project to the farm program vision. And then in 2024, this is a very recent activity, they were able to bring me on board as their agricultural specialist to build capacity within the agency and to continue working with our staff and our partners to continue the development of the agricultural program, because the board and other interested and invested parties realized that this was a bigger part of our mission and they wanted to continue to bring staff on board. And I'm very glad that they did so that we can continue doing this work. And, some of the strategies that we've undergone thus far to support agriculture, you can see here a picture of that Santa Clara Valley Agricultural Plan. But we really wanted to highlight some of the successes that we've had thus far are protecting farms and ranches through fee purchase, conservation easements, and other incentives like I had mentioned before. But also managing those open space authorities' land for agricultural operations, but also for natural resource protection. And a big part of our work as well has been engaging in local, regional, and state land use planning and policy projects. We have staff that go up to our state capitol every year and are able to go and lobby and bring awareness to these issues to our representatives to be able to promote farm and rangeland protection. And that is such a critical piece of the work that we do here at the agency and one that we continue to keep doing. But we recognize that even though we have this massive undertaking and even though we're doing all this work, there's still more that can be done. And as part of that, we wanted to start to explore what could that look like. And that led us to the creation of this process, which is bringing out a farm program vision. And to answer that question of, well, what is a farm program vision really? It is going to be a guiding document for the authority's agricultural mission and work. So it's going to be our North Star, really going to lay out a plan for the things that we hope to accomplish and continue to grow into within these next 5 years. And we wanted to stick to that 5-year timeline because we recognize that things are dynamic and things change, and we want to make sure that we're responsive to those changes and able to adapt as necessary. And a shorter term action plan will really allow us to be nimble and flexible and move through that as well. And it'll also lay out and formalize how the authority works in agriculture. We know we've done a really great job at protecting lands, but what are the other sort of niches that we can fill or other programs that we can support and collaborate on to continue to improve resources and supports for our local agricultural communities. And really doing this towards the goal of agricultural sustainability, whether that is economic sustainability. We know it's really hard to be a farmer and really hard to make sure that things are economically viable. And so really trying to understand how can we help support farmers from that front, whether it's through partnerships, whether it's through supporting existing programs, but also that environmental sustainability. We really believe that they go hand in hand, right? And to ensure economic sustainability, you also want to make sure you're taking care of your environment and your land so that it has continued health, so that you can really continue to grow and farm and be able to do all of those really important things on your land. And that's just a brief description of what we're hoping to achieve in this farm program vision. And we're really excited about being able to speak with community and to be able to learn what should be those things that we focus on within these next 5 years. And after that, being able to revisit the plan and adjust as needed and continue to grow to be able to fulfill a long-term vision of economic and environmental agricultural health. And this is happening in conjunction with other processes in the county, other projects in the county. And something that we've been running into a bit is this question of, we've been hearing that the county is doing a rural zoning updates and some projects as well around agriculture. How related is this project to yours? And the answer is that it isn't related at all. There's two sort of concurrent projects that are happening at the same time, which we think is very exciting, right? To have more focus and more folks working in agriculture. But to go into a little bit of the differences in case anybody is curious, our farm program vision really is focused on being an internal guidance document for agricultural programs. And it doesn't affect property rights or zoning. As a public agency, we don't have any permitting authority or things like that. And it is led internally by Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority staff. As an independent special district, we are sort of a public agency, but not quite the county. And so we're very different in that aspect. And we're going to have stakeholder and community engagement throughout this process. We've already conducted it starting in January, and we're going to be conducting it through March and onward as the need and as interest informs the project. And the county is doing their rural zoning amendment to support agriculture and to be able to do more of those updates to their zoning regulations and their land use rules. And that's a separate process that's happening entirely. And it's led by the Santa Clara County Planning Department. And while community engagement is currently paused, they are going to have some updates that will come in spring of 2026. And we'll be sharing out a link if you're curious about how that process is different to our process. You can see their website and really learn through and read through some of their documents to learn more about that. But yeah, I wanted to just bring this up and sort of compare and contrast what are some of the efforts that are happening in our region around agriculture and how are they different and how would they hope to support farmers and ranchers in our area. And to dig a little bit more into our specific project and some of the goals that we have for it, we have 5 very high-level goals right now at this moment, and we understand and realize that underneath that there will be more objectives that come out. The part of this project that is very exciting is we're going to define the authority's agricultural niche, while also creating a long-term vision and goals. We understand that there is a multitude of agencies, whether that's cooperative extension, whether that is nonprofits like California Farm Link or Kitchen Table Advisors that do a lot of important work to support already our agricultural communities and producers. And so we want to understand, right, where can the Open Space Authority continue to support, but really fit in and really make sure that we're collaborating and not being duplicative of efforts that are already happening so that we're efficient with our resources and able to have the biggest impact that we can have. And this is really getting at what are we focusing on? What are we doing as an agency? And also the why, right? That kind of ties in a little bit to our vision. Why are we doing this work? And what are the things that we hope to see long term, 10, 20, 30 years from now that we can start doing within these 5 years to have a collective impact towards that long-term vision. And alongside that, we really want to continue to strengthen our stakeholder group because we think it's critical that folks on the ground are involved in this work, whether that is farmers, ranchers, whether they're on our protected lands or just neighbors in the region, because that makes sure that the plan is rooted in reality and rooted in something that is informed by the community and it's for them as well. And this is really our how. how are we hoping to do this work? It's by talking with people. It's by hearing what their issues are, what their dreams are, what their hopes are, and by taking all of that feedback and bringing it into this farm program vision so that it is a shared vision, a collective vision for our agricultural community at large. And I hope this goes without saying, but just to make sure that it's clear, the goal of this vision is to really support farms and ranches in our authority's jurisdiction. And this is really the where. Where is this happening, right? Like, where are our bounds sort of existing and taking place? And so it is within the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority's jurisdiction, which is part of Santa Clara County, but not quite all of it. And so we hope that while we focus directly within our jurisdiction, the impacts of our program will, have a positive effect throughout the entire county. And, part of that, doing this work with who, is really building those regional partnerships and that alignment, right? I mentioned earlier, working with UC Cooperative Extension, working with the county, working with other nonprofits and other public agencies that are doing this work, because we recognize we don't exist in a vacuum. And the things that we do have strength when they're conducted with other people. And so we're really excited about being able to build these partnerships and this alignment and continue to push this work forward alongside other agencies and other organizations. And the end goal, right at the end of this process, in summer of 2026, when we wrap up, is to hopefully create a North Star for the agricultural program to guide staff, such as myself, such as our policy team, such as other folks that are conducting this work, to be able to give us a clear vision of what we're doing and what we're really working on and where we're going with agriculture. And that is, our when do we hope to do this? It's within that 5-year project. And, very excited to have some of these as our, farm program vision high level goals, while we really figure out what are those nitty gritty objectives that we're going to do throughout this process. And, speaking of that process and some topics that we're hoping to explore, some of the conversations that we've had thus far have circled around these 4 topics specifically, but also many others. And the first is really exploring and understanding what are the unique challenges that farmers and ranchers in our area face. We think that agriculture is very place-based, right? As it has to be, it happens on the land, it happens in our local communities, and really understanding what are the unique challenges and barriers that our farmers are facing, I think, is key and critical to understanding this process and the solutions that we could implement to help alleviate or get rid of some of those challenges and barriers. And beyond that, we want to also explore what are some of the opportunities for partnership and collaboration. We don't want to do, as I mentioned before, work that is already being done in the region. And so really talking with our partners and understanding what has happened thus far, what do you need support on to continue doing, and really focusing on that piece to make sure that this work is efficient and that this work is conducted alongside others. And so this is really about having conversations with folks, having conversations with county staff, technical assistance staff, cooperative extension agents, and really understanding how can we all work together to bring this work forward. The next thing that we're exploring is how do we build equitable and accessible pathways for land access for farmers? Land is incredibly expensive in our area, and farmers are often unable to access some lands that they might need. And so really understanding what are those challenges, what are those barriers, how can we make it more accessible and more affordable for farmers to be able to grow land, right? Because you can't, I think it'd be really hard to be able to farm without land and without access to land. And so really critical to understand, make sure that we understand that piece and figure out ways to make it as accessible for everyone so that we're encouraging a diversity of operations, a diversity of farmers, because with that diversity brings strength and it brings resilience into our communities. And so that's a key topic that we'll be exploring in this process. As well as what are some of those long-term goals? Yes, this plan is for the next 5 years. It's really figuring out what we should focus on, but we need an eye to the future. And so really establishing what is that eye to the future and what are the things we hope to see, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, that are going to, we're going to be able to plant the seeds for now within this 5-year process and then see them grow and flourish over time. and many more. We also recognize that agriculture is expansive. We want to hear from folks and we want to understand what are the topics that they think are relevant in this time, in this day and age. And, you know, we are excited to be having these conversations and exploring these topics with folks, and encourage you and invite you to share with us what you think also is important, because we want to make sure that our process is informed by our stakeholders and by our community. And, you know, to understand a little bit too about how you might and when you might be able to get involved in this process and sort of what's happening, I have a brief project timeline overview. So we've been conducting our initial partner engagement. We did that back in October of 2025, and this was really just a gathering of minds to understand within these people that are providing these resources and support within these organizations, what is happening and who is doing what. And it was really just an initial brainstorm meeting to understand, you know, what is currently taking place. And now we're currently in the plan research and drafting phase. So we're taking the brainstorm and all of the ideas that we learned from that initial partner engagement, and we're reading documents, we're looking through publications, we're having meetings with farmers, we're presenting at meetings like the one today, but also other meetings like the South County Farms Association meetings and the Santa Clara County Farm Bureau meetings to really understand what are those things that we should be focusing on within our plan. And January through March of this year, we've already conducted this. We're doing focused stakeholder input. And what that means is we really want to hear from the farmers and the ranchers. And so I'm reaching out, I'm setting up time to talk with folks, and I invite folks to also reach out to me and do the same. If they are, you know, members of the food system, if they work within agriculture, we want to hear from you. We want to understand what are your concerns, what are your ideas, what are your hopes for the future that you have for agriculture in our region. And, you know, hopefully around April, we also want to bring our board along and our Citizens Advisory Committee to make sure that they are able to give feedback on the process, as they will be the ones to give it final approval. And so we want to make sure that we're sharing the thoughts with them and the process with them, and, you know, the ideas that our community and our stakeholders have presented thus far, so that they're able to reflect and, you know, be able to give feedback that we hope to include in May of 2026 when we're refining our plan, right? When we've everyone's sort of digested, everyone's settled into the information. And, you know, what are the edits that we need to make? What are the final tweaks? What are the pieces that we maybe missed at the beginning that we want to explore now, before we present to the board for their final approval and adoption in summer of 2026. And so it's a pretty quick timeline, but we want to make sure that we're giving time. We're giving at least 3 months for that focused stakeholder input. And this can be adjusted as needed if we see that, you know, the community wants to speak more and they want to understand more and farmers want to speak with us more. Finding that time to make sure that we're able to engage with them and really hear from folks on the ground is going to be critical to this work. And so I'm very excited about this project and its timeline. And just to give a little bit more about that initial partner meeting and some of the ideas that came from it. A few of the participants, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the folks that we worked with and that we had in the room. You know, it was folks from UC Cooperative Extension that historically work in supporting small farms, in supporting urban agriculture, in supporting, you know, ranchers. And we also spoke with Kitchen Table Advisors, which is a nonprofit that does business advising for farmers, which is very specific. And they have a wealth of knowledge. We also worked with Fresh Approach, which is a food access and nutrition nonprofit in the Bay Area, as well as the North Santa Clara Resource Conservation District, folks from Sustainable Agriculture Education, SAGE, and the Peninsula Open Space Trust, who is a huge partner in our work at protecting lands and making sure that they stay protected and open. And also some folks from the County of Santa Clara. We worked with them extensively in 2018, and we want to make sure that we continue to bring them along in this work. And that they're informed by what we're doing, and hopefully that we can stay apprised and informed of the projects that the county is taking. And some of the initial ideas that came up as a result of that is really the importance of land protection and access, and how critical that is. It's foundational for being able to support agriculture. And so we're going to be looking at how have we done that, and how can we continue to do that successfully as we move through this project and through our work. But beyond that, this idea of knowledge sharing, both for the public and for producers and agricultural members themselves. we want to understand what are the things that the public wants to know about agriculture, and we want to bring them along on the process and really share that knowledge of why it's so beneficial and how you can support your local food system. But also for producers, right? I think growing food is one of the most humbling experiences that folks can have. You often have to deal with Mother Nature, and it teaches you something every year. And so being able to continue that educational and knowledge sharing process for our producers, we think is critical, so that they're aware of and understand sort of what are the things that are coming up for them that they can continue to improve on and continue to learn, so that their production is improved and so that their success is continued. And in addition to that, what's the local and regional infrastructure that's needed, right? We used to have, as the Valley of Heart's Delight, a ton of infrastructure focused on agriculture. And even though we've lost some of that, we want to have these conversations on what are the pieces that we can bring back or continue to uphold that are going to be critical for post-harvest processing and distribution and other things that are really key for successful local agricultural communities. And other things, right? Like I said, it was a melding of the minds, and we had plenty of great ideas that came up that we're really excited to explore throughout this process. And, you know, one of the other ways that we're continuing to gather information is by now engaging in these stakeholder conversations and interviews. And so what I'm doing currently is working on conducting surveys and farm visits with our farmers. And the goal is really to bring them along in the creation of this plan and to hear from them and really understand what their real world challenges are and what opportunities they think exist in the region. And so in-person options for involvement, if you're interested, are on-farm ranch visits. And that we're doing those January through March, which is hopefully, as we know, farmers don't really have a slow season. They're very hard workers year round, but now in the winter season, maybe they have a bit more time to engage in these conversations, which is why we focused it around now. And then virtually, you know, if they don't have time for me to come out, if they don't have time to show me around their farms, we still want to invite them to give their feedback. And so we'll be releasing a farmer rancher stakeholder survey very soon on our website in English, Mandarin, and Spanish, so that folks from a diversity of backgrounds can engage and understand and share more about what they think is needed. And a result of some of that initial state engagement and findings, as I mentioned, in January 2026 thus far, we've conducted 2 presentations, one at the South County Farms Association meeting and another at the Santa Clara County Farm Bureau. And that sparked a lot of interest in setting up farm visits and sites, which is something I'm working on doing now. And of those 2 in-person farm visits that I've had so far, some of the initial thoughts that have come back is that there is a need for some technical assistance from the business perspective, right? Understanding what is the grant funding that's out there, how do we apply, understanding some of the mechanics of what it's like to continue to support the business side of farming is something that is being brought up as a resource that could be needed or could be expanded on. And then also, again, this was really excited to see sort of the overlap between what the partners were saying and then what the stakeholders and farmers were saying is this need for regional infrastructure. And what are those things that could really support an agricultural community and agricultural producers in our area, as well as that public education and awareness piece. You know, even the farmers themselves are saying, we really wish that the public knew more about what we were doing and why it's so important and how they can support us. And so seeing these overlaps is a very exciting part of this process, and seeing, you know, where the topics that we should really focus on, where are the areas that we should continue to sort of explore and dig into more as we're doing this process. And it's, you know, very exciting to see that there are overlaps at times, right? And it continues to renew our excitement for the project, but also our understanding that we're on the right track and we're sort of really starting to get at the meat of what is needed as part of this process. And now for the, you know, how you can get involved and understand more about the project. Even if you're not a farmer, we think that everyone should be involved in this process because everyone eats, right? And everyone is impacted and supported by agriculture. And so what that means is if you would like to stay more up to date on the project and how we're doing this far, you can go to our website link here to sign up for updates. And this is where we'll update you when we send out that survey. We'll update you as we're opening up for comments and feedback. And At any time, if you would like to submit comments or feedback, my email is also listed below. And you can see there specifically, there's also a booking link. If you're a farmer or a rancher and you want me to come out and learn more about your operation and more about what you do, you can book time with me directly to come out and do that and really speak with you about this project and what your thoughts are and what you hope we explore. And also, I recognize that sometimes it's easier to call or text. So you can also, that is my working phone number right there. You can give me a call, you can shoot me a text, and we can discuss some of these things as well. And yeah, we're very excited to continue this project. We are really curious about the pieces that have come up this far and looking into them more and investigating how the authority might continue to support farmers and ranchers and really leaning into that curiosity and continuing to do this engagement and this outreach with folks so that they're aware of this project that's going on, but also so that they know how to get involved and how to stay apprised of the information. And, with that, I just want to say thank you all for your time and would love to open it up for any questions that anyone has. Or Nick or Kylie, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Well, thank you, Ada. First and foremost, it is so clear that your passion and purpose for what you do is really remarkable. So thank you for all your efforts to date, and more importantly, what's to come in the future. You know what I like to offer as well. You know, we'll continue our partnership and support with the authority, and I would love to be able to maybe work with you and your team to set up a cohort for a stakeholder engagement here in Morgan Hills, San Martin, and our surrounding communities. If that's helpful, the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce is happy to help participate in that. It brought up an old proverb that I had recently thought about in the past, but it is coming back again. That vision without action is a daydream, and action without a vision is a nightmare. And it's really clear that you're setting your 5-year strategic plan with a tremendous amount of discipline, a tremendous amount of community engagement, and with that, all those wonderful findings that you'll hear from those gathering sessions will help really not only firm up your strategic plan, but it'll really fortify and bolster it for sustainability long term. So, we're privileged to have you here as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and we're also very committed to help extend communication, gathering sessions, et cetera, to make sure that we disseminate the right information so your strategic plan obviously is as solid as it can be going forward. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
Mm,
much, Nick. That
mm,
sounds very
mm.
exciting.
It looks like we do have someone raising their hand. I'm going to go ahead and allow them to speak.
Thanks.
So, Marth, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk. So, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Um, hey, good to see you again, Anna.
Nice
it's
to
been a
see
while.
you,
Happy New
someone.
Year.
Yes, Happy New
Thanks.
Year.
Thanks to the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce for putting this together. This is awesome. But yeah, my name is Samarth, and I run this organization called the Coyote Valley Agroecology Coalition. We started this last year out of Plant and Soul, a nonprofit in San Jose, because one of our clients wanted to make a boutique farm on the Coyote Creek. And we saw that why not just work on this one farm and build native plants here? Why don't we engage with numerous other farms who want to do that kind of thing? So now our group includes 2 farms, one tribal foundation, as well as a general store, the Top Knot General Store in Morgan Hill. So we like to think we've answered some of the questions that you've posed here, and that we have the whole vertical from soil health all the way up to how you would sell these farm products. And so, of course, we've been talking to various grant bodies about how we can continue our work. And I had a great conversation with the Coastal Conservancy last Friday about the Coyote Valley plan that they have and the funding that they want to give to the region, which is awesome. So they said that they're basing a lot of their funding off of the Coyote Valley Master Plan that
Mm.
you were talking about, and that they've been having lots of conversations with you guys. So I was just curious if you had some more details on that, and how we all could participate in and what's the best way to participate? Should we try
Mm.
to work with the Coastal Conservancy directly to apply to Prop 4 funding that way, or to work more with you guys first about if we were working in the region on plans that Prop 4 could fund, and then from there apply more jointly, since you're already coming up with a master plan and have sort of worked with a lot of the organizations in the region?
Yeah, Samarth, that's a great question. I think that one of the things that keeps coming up in this farm program vision is how critical that funding is, right? It's really hard to do work without funds. And so understanding what are the mechanics for being able to access those is really key. And I am, not as involved in the funding side for the Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan side. I'm really supportive within their agricultural planning and sort of what's going on there. But I'd be happy to connect you more with our team that is able to provide you with more information about, how do you get funding and how can we collaborate on the conservation areas master plan for Coyote Valley? Because I think it is critical. I think collaborations and, being able to work with folks is key. And I feel like a lot of those grant programs are tricky to navigate at times. And so the more that we can really share understanding and be able to have conversations with you, Samarth, and with others in the region, I think is important. And so I'd be happy to connect you with them, and also understand too, because I would love to learn more, yeah, about what is the funding that is out there for this work. You're I think a step ahead of the game than we are when you're actually looking at funding right now. We're still trying, at least in the farm program vision, to determine what should we work on. And we're excited to get to the how and so the funding piece of it. And so I think it's great that you're looking forward to that. And exciting to hear that the Coyote Valley Agroecological Coalition is building itself out and working to access those funds to be able to do the work.
Oh, sorry. I just muted him. I'm so sorry. I think he was about to say thank you. It is not letting me unmute him.
That's it. That's all I was saying.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There you
Sorry, Samar.
I'll
Thank you very
definitely
much.
reach out.
Thank you.
Okay, so for anyone else who has a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Otherwise, thank you very much, Anna, for taking the time today to come on and do this presentation. I think it was very valuable information. And for anyone who is hoping to be able to revisit this information, maybe get those links that we talked about. Like I said, the full recording will be available on the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce's YouTube channel. I'll have it up by tomorrow, and I will have the links available on our social media at the same time. And then within the description of the YouTube video, I will include all of the links Anna talked about today, as well as her contact information. So if you do have further questions, definitely reach out to Open Space Authority. They want your feedback. They want to be having these conversations. So if you have a question about the strategic plan or feedback on how you think it should be moving forward, definitely reach out. If you have questions surrounding the strategic plan, similar to what Samarth just asked, reach out because Anna will be able to connect you with the proper people. So thank you very much again, Anna. Be sure to follow the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce on our social medias at MHCoC. So you'll see when we post this video. And follow the Open Space Authority at Open Space Authority so that you can see how they progress on this 5-year journey. It does look like we have one more. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just asking another question if,
yeah, go ahead.
If no one else wanted to ask questions.
Yeah,
okay, since we do have a little bit more time. Okay, so you did talk about the South County Farms Association and then the Santa Clara County Farm Bureau. I guess I had a question for the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce. Do you engage with these organizations regularly? And how does the Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce view agriculture?
Well,
Just because I've not heard a lot about this yet.
Yeah, it's a great question to have, and of course, living in Morgan Hill, it's a really predominant business for us here in Morgan Hill. It's been a part of our DNA, our history for many decades. So it's important for us, and the chamber obviously is fully supportive of all of our members that are either ranchers or farmers as well. So this is for us, this is yet another step forward to make sure that we're integrated within our community as well. And this is such a vital component of who we are in Morgan Hill. We're here to support support in any and every way we can. So as we learn through the process, we look to expand our knowledge and, more importantly, our services to make sure that the ecosystem here around Morgan Hill, San Martin, and our Gilroy neighbors obviously is secure for the future as well. So more to come. It's a great question. I said we're getting more involved in areas that we really want to be involved, and this is certainly a critical aspect for us moving forward.
Okay, so thank you very much, Nick, for answering that. It's true, we very much value our agricultural partners in Morgan Hill, especially the members that we support who are farmers and restaurateurs and just community members who really benefit from this work. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Anna, for your expertise. And the link to this recorded version will be out tomorrow. So thank you.
Very good.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.